Hello everybody, it's Larry and welcome to today's video. This is number 10, the end of 2 weeks on the introductory series, number 10. And today we're going to make some corrections. So this is the tree as we left it off yesterday. And remember, I said that this was family number 2. So when we were dealing with ancestry, if you don't know my story, just real quickly, I was born a Basie, adopted Jones. At 24, I was told I was a Basie. And at age 56, I get a DNA surprise, surprise, you're a Brown. So I refer to them often as family number 1, family number 2, and family number 3. Now, Joe is my adoptive father, and he adopted me in 1965, and he left in 1980. So I guess 15 years in there. I had a father, and not before really, and not after. So anyway, enough about me. But what we want to do now is, since this is part of the universal tree, Joe is indeed the son of Valda and Calvin. However, I'm not a biological son. I am an adoptive son. And I know some people are like, hey, it's your adoptive family, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that is one of the reasons you want to document this appropriately. So remember, I said, to edit from the tree, we're going to have to go into one of the other views. So let's take it into landscape view. And we're going to look on my information. And we're going to come up into my profile. And so we click on me and we're going to go to person. Now it's going to tell me living people, we're hidden. Okay. And I don't have, birth dates and stuff in there. And 62 has been in a lot of videos, so I'm not too worried about that. So we have right here, well, we want to correct this kinship. Now remember before, when in the last video we corrected the kinship by removing, one of the spouses, showing how to do that. Well, right here, look, there's an edit. You see that little pencil? That means edit. So we're going to click on this, and it's going to bring up the relationship type. Now we can add relationship type. We can add a mother, which we want to do. Remember, we've been doing it from the tree, but we can also do it right here, connecting it to Larry. But right here with Joe Jones, I don't want to remove him because he is the adoptive father, number 2. And so right here we do add relationship type. So we're going to click on this and see right here it defaults to biological. But you also have adoptive, foster, guardianship, and step. So you can have a stepfather, adoptive father. So it was a full adoptive father, wasn't just a stepfather. Now the difference is, let's just go over that real quick. An adoptive father goes through the paperwork and does a formal adoption. Biological, I think that kind of speaks for itself. Foster is if the child is put in foster care and he has foster parents, he'll have a foster mother and a foster dad. Often this becomes the only family that they know and becomes their mother and father. So you have foster dad or foster mother. Guardianship is similar to foster, except that it's a guardianship appointed by the court. And then last is stepfather or stepmother. And what this means is the biological parent, for instance, remarried. And the next father did not adopt them because maybe the other parent, is keeping, not giving up, the rights for the kinship. So there was not an adoption. So then that person becomes a step parent. So a stepmother or stepfather. So that's what you have, is you have a stepmother or step parent. And that's when there is no, formal legal adoption. You have biological and adoptive. And then these two deal with the courts, whether it go into foster care or a guardianship, which is appointed. So Joe was not my biological, he was an adoptive father. And he married my mother in 1965. So I'm going to put 1965. And that's when it's either 65 or 66 when the adoption took place. I don't have that information yet. Honestly, I just found out through doing the videos for this series when my mother and Joe actually married. I actually got that record for the first time doing the video series here. That was pretty shocking. I actually had to take a step back for a little bit on the videos. So, reason this information correct, you can type in, I am Larry, this is so, or whatever you want to put in there. I'm not going to put in information there. It is correct. And so I'm just going to put it in there. And so now the kinship right here, it says adopted father, and it shows a year, adoptive 65. So 1962 through living. And now going through the kinships, and if I add a relationship type, let's look at these again. So if I was to go with family number 1, that's Dwight Basie. He's not my adoptive dad because he never filed for adoption. So there's no court records of adoption. He's not my biological dad because he wasn't the sperm donor. He wasn't in foster care or guardianship by the courts. So technically, even though he was married to my mother and is on my original birth certificate number 1. I have a birth certificate number 2 with Jones. He would be classified as a stepfather because he was my father. He was married to my mother and never went through the processes of court to adopt me. Now, he never would have thought he had a reason to adopt me because he thought he was my biological father. So that is actually, by definition, he would be a stepfather because he was not biological and he was not adoptive. He wasn't appointed. So therefore, when I put in family number 1, Basie, I'll add him in as a stepfather, even though he was my father at the time of my birth. So that's kind of messed up. But if you're trying to keep the information correct, that's kind of how you're going to step through it. And then lastly, of course, my brown father, when I add him in, his relationship type will, of course, be biological. All right. Well, there you have it. That's how to edit the relationships in FamilySearch.org. This is a little shorter video, but it's one that's real important because as we go through this and we get our information out there, we want to do our tree and get our tree right. This one, Joe is an adoptive parent and is in the tree right now, but once we start putting the biological, we're going to get some options. So we'll get to that one later on. But that's how you would go and edit a kinship anywhere in here that you find that you need to. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's rather short. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday.